Thanks, Aaron. In construction, you're 6 times more likely to die by suicide than all other workplace fatalities combined. Okay? So struck bys, confined space, falling from heights, electrocution, add all those together, 6 times more people die due to suicide. So what does that mean in terms of numbers, right? How many people? It's 6,000 each year in the US alone. Okay? So you might be asking yourself, well, how does that compare to other industries? I mean, we're not bad people in construction, right? We're decent. It's 4 times worse than the national average, and it's second only to mining. Okay. Suicide isn't the only thing that impacts lives in construction. In addition to these numbers, we lose another 16,000 each year to drug overdose, a lot of which on construction sites. So when you add all these together, that's 22,000 workers each year. And it's not just workers, right? It's husbands, wives, fathers, daughters, friends, coworkers, lost to mental health illness. That's 60 per day, over 2 per hour. Is this an acceptable stat? Can we agree that this is something that's not just totally out of our control? Right? Something that we can't just accept as a cost of doing business in a tough industry? It's true that a lot of the root causes of these issues reside outside of the workplace, but this does not absolve us of the responsibility as leaders to take care of our people. And we're going to talk about how today. But before we do, we're going to get into some more fun facts. How many people, wild guesses out there, how many people in the US work in the construction sector? Anybody? 10 million? This guy knows his stuff. It's 10 million. You get a free hat after. Of those 10 million, we talk about the labor shortage, right? So I've seen reports of up to 40%. I think that's high, but 30% of the workforce is going to retire in the next 5 to 10 years based on demographics and age. Okay, so that's 3 million people we're going to have to replace just on retirement, or about 400,000 per year when you average it out. This doesn't factor in the net increase demand on the industry, right? Population growth, housing, power plants, data centers are booming. Hospitals, roads, bridges, tunnels. Sorry, I almost forgot tunnels, guys. Anybody follow apprenticeship intake data? I'm looking at HR. Every year, about 250,000 new entrants come into apprenticeships in the construction, mostly in the construction industry. Okay, so we need 400,000. We're getting 250. We're just over halfway. Not too bad, right? Oh shoot! What about retention? How many people are sticking around? Of those 250,000 starting, only 100,000 are completing. Okay, so we're only a quarter of the way there each year. We're losing people. So what does this all mean? Where am I going with this? Well, we're dealing with a mental health epidemic, as we saw through the numbers. Our people are struggling, a lot of which in silence. There's increased demand on infrastructure now and going forward. And we're losing people faster than we can get them. So there's going to be less people to do more work. Any guesses what's going to happen? Now, at this point, you're probably thinking, this guy's really making me feel like crap, okay? And I hope this turns around soon. Well, it's not all doom and gloom. I promise there is some good news, and here it is. Each and every one of us here have an unprecedented opportunity to impact massive change on the industry and the great people in it. And that's what I'm really here to talk about today. So who am I? My name is Angelo. I've had 20 years in construction in various roles. Currently, I'm Director of Operations for a mechanical firm up in Canada. And I also founded the human side of construction, where I write some books, I make some content, and I work with companies to basically improve the human experience in the industry. Okay, so the agenda here, what are we going to do? We're going to talk about a couple terms that you should know and why they're important: mental wellness and psychological safety. We're going to give you 3 actionable tools that you'll be able to take away today and use with your teams. And then we're going to bring some folks up, have a panel discussion, make them sweat a little bit, have a little fun. Not too bad, don't worry. And then an open Q&A. We're hoping to get some questions from the audience, right? So if stuff comes up during the presentation or discussion, feel free to note it down and we can talk about it after. So far, so good? You guys still with me? See some heads nodding, good. Okay, so what the hell is this guy talking about? Mental wellness, psychological safety, what is this stuff? It's essentially the 2 pillars of high-performing teams. Okay? It's the me and the we. Before health and safety start, it doesn't just start on the job site. It starts before you come. Right? When I leave my home, when I leave my family in the morning, I'm not just dragging my physical ass to work. I'm bringing my mental state and my recent experiences. And then that's interacting with everybody else's in the workplace. So what we're talking about here is the intersection of the me, the individual and their mental wellness, and the we, the psychological safety and the culture. And that intersection is where things get pretty interesting. Because I've always said, life, much like construction, is pretty simple, but people mess it up, right? They make it complicated. So let's get into it. Mental wellness, what is it? Well, it's more than just the absence of illness, right? It's showing up ready to work with a clear head, focused on your task. Sounds pretty simple, right? It's when you operate your best. But the problem is stuff happens, right? Life happens. Okay? Quick show of hands here. Who's ever gotten in a disagreement with their spouse or their partner? Quick show of hands. Anybody who doesn't have your hand up, come see me after, because I would love to know what you're doing and what I'm doing wrong. For those of us who aren't perfect, had your hand up, I want you to think back to those moments when you were at work. So when you showed up, what were you thinking? What was on your mind? Maybe you were furious with your spouse about doing something to you, or maybe you were ashamed or embarrassed about messing up again, or maybe that's a guy thing, I don't know. But the point is, in those moments, were you thinking clearly? Were you working safely? Were you being productive? And what I found in life, you're never dealing with one stressor at a time, right? When it rains, it pours. There's financial stresses, family strains, job site demands, the news. It all adds up, right? And what it amounts to is it's a bit of mental fogginess. So it'll impact the way you show up. It impacts the way you react to situations. It impacts the way your mood, right? A lot of times you don't even realize it. So mental wellness is really the clarity, the lack of that fog. Why it's important to us in construction. Number one, it's going to improve safety. So when people are mentally well, they're less of a risk to themselves and those around them because you're more focused on the task and you're not as distracted. It's going to increase sustainability. Construction's a stressful industry. There's no way around it. We're dealing with time, money, and people. Right? So effectively managing that stress, finding out how, is going to be a way that you can enjoy your career and have a more sustainable career. It's going to enhance productivity. So when you're mentally well, you're focused on the task, you're not distracted, you're going to make less mistakes, there's going to be less rework. You're going to be happier. Happier people are productive. And that's going to rub off on others as well, right, and impact the crew. So that's the me, the mental wellness. Now we're looking at psychological safety, the we aspect. What this really is how safe your people feel speaking up when something's not right or challenging the status quo. Okay? I'm sure you can all think back to a time maybe earlier on in your career where you came across an instance on site and it just didn't feel right? And maybe you thought twice or maybe you didn't report it at all because you were afraid about how somebody was going to think about you or perceive you, maybe as weak or humiliate you. We really need to shift away from that mentality, right? Where people feel safe presenting these issues. So why this matters, again, number one, increased safety. So when people feel psychologically safe, they're going to be more willing to identify those physical hazards or come out with those mental struggles, right? And that will allow an intervention to take place, which could potentially save a life. It's going to increase knowledge transfer. We've talked about that today. We saw a bunch of people, a wealth of knowledge retiring, right, at the company. When people feel psychologically safe, it drops the ego barrier. So people feel safer asking those stupid questions, right? Because nobody's going to make fun of them, and it's going to help them learn and help their career. They're going to take smaller calculated risks. And it improves operational efficiency. When teams are operating with psychological safety, information flows freely and instantly. You're not covering your ass when you made a mistake because you're afraid you're going to get in trouble, right? And you're going to help other people learn along the way. It's also going to help people challenge the status quo, right? They're going to feel able to question, oh, why are we doing it this way? Okay? And feel valued there. Is any of this stuff making sense to you guys? Is this resonating? Nodded heads? Okay. So some of you might hear it and think, I don't know, Ange, this sounds good, but it's pretty light and fluffy. Touchy-feely, I think Aaron said, right? The soft stuff. We're not talking about holding hands and singing Kumbaya, unless you guys want to. You want to all stand up and do it. And we're not just talking about our feelings. What we're talking about here is a competitive advantage for you and your teams. It's giving your people the best chance to perform at their best. And that's not only going to allow them to execute more consistent, smoother, profitable work, but it's going to let them go home to their families happier. And that's what we're really trying to do here. Okay? So you can use these factors to be proactive about these issues, continue to be an industry leader, and attract and retain the best talent. So, I mean, it's good to know this stuff, right? But knowing is half the battle. Information is useless unless you apply it. What we really need to do is shift from awareness, the awareness piece, to accountability and action. Okay? So in the next few slides, we're going to go over 3 tasks, real simple, you can use starting today to improve these factors on your team. Number 1, deepen the check-in. So, when you start your day off and you're going around talking to people and you say, hey, Aaron, how you doing? What's a typical response you get? Good, you? Fine, thanks. Or my personal favorite, living the dream. But what does that tell you about what that person is actually experiencing, what they're feeling? Behind those words, there is a feeling, there is an experience. It could be bad, it could be good, it could be indifferent. And those surface level conversations, what value does that bring in building that relationship and building that team and that culture? Virtually nothing. So, and what I found, in 20 years of working with people, most, not all, it's not for everybody, but most people, they want you to care. They want to share what's going on. They want you to validate their existence and their experience. And sometimes they just want to shoot the breeze and tell you what they did on the weekend. People love talking about that stuff for some reason. So what I'm going to challenge you to do here for this tool over the next few weeks, 3 times a week, check in with somebody at a deeper level. Ask them a specific question. It doesn't have to be a therapy session. If you know they have kids, ask about their kids, pets. Maybe they play pickleball. Do you guys play pickleball up here? That's huge in Canada. I don't know. Okay, do this 3 times a week and watch your relationships improve. Number 2, de-stigmatize vulnerability. We've kind of touched on it, but in traditional construction culture, people are hesitant to bring up issues, right? Either physical or mental, because they're afraid maybe there's going to be some retribution, they're going to be perceived as weak or outcast from the group. When leaders are open and honest about their challenges and their experiences, it's a signal to the rest of the team to do so as well. And what we're really trying to do here is reduce that silence gap from the period in time when something happens, when an issue arises, to the time where it can be addressed. Because the bigger that gap and the longer that period of time, the more damage can be done and the harder it is to mitigate. So one thing we can do here, and we had some really good examples of lessons learned this morning, let's not wait another year to the next district meeting to share more lessons learned. Put it in your calendars once a month. Last Friday of the month, 1 o'clock, get together with the team. Share something that happened that month, either on your job or somebody else's. Be proactive about it. What that's going to do, it's going to encourage other people, to share their wins and losses as well. So it's going to promote psychological safety, but it's also going to help knowledge transfer, which is the next tool. We've talked about mentorship, right? That's a huge buzzword. It came up a lot last night, which, by the way, that retiree ceremony was absolutely amazing. I've worked with a lot of companies, and I haven't heard the word love used in construction so much in the 20 years I've been here. It was awesome. What we need to do here is work on increasing the knowledge transfer. When I talk to younger folks in the industry, they're super passionate about mentorship. They think it's a critical part of their career development, and they're absolutely right. But they're also extremely frustrated, right? Because they don't get a lot of opportunity and exposure to more senior workers. And what I've found is it's not that people are, the more experienced people are bad, and they don't want to coach and they want to gatekeep information, which is what some people think. It comes down to a time thing, right? Job site demands, deadlines don't move, job's got to get done. You barely have enough time to do the work, let alone explain it to somebody. But the bad news is we as a team have to figure out a way to make that time. It's imperative to development and retention of junior staff, especially high performers, to have this structured framework to not only facilitate that transfer of knowledge and experience, but to give them that value, make them feel valued, make them feel cared. That's why people stick around at companies. Right? So what we can do here, I know it might be a lot, dedicate 1 hour of your week to coaching. The more senior people, get off the tools, walk the job site, talk about the status of the job, talk about something specific going on. Or just sit in the trailer of the office for an hour, undivided attention, no phone calls, no meetings, just to answer questions. Okay, that's how we build up the team. Some key points to remember here. A lot of health and safety plans focus on the protection of physical assets, people, and property. Well, what do we do to protect the mental aspect? We protect our bodies with PPE, safe work procedures, engineering, but how do we protect our minds? We might be building infrastructure, but don't kid yourselves, we're in the people business. You can use that HR, that's a good slogan. Our people are more than just resources to get a job done. They're all individuals with their own lives and experiences, and they're our most important asset. Small steps equals big impact. The stuff we're talking about here, they're gargantuan tasks, right? And it's going to take sustained effort from all levels of industry. We're not going to solve it overnight. But every interaction counts, no matter how small. So keep that in mind. What I found in life, there's 3 types of people. Those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, and those who say, what the hell just happened? Don't be the third guy. I want you to take what you learned here today in this meeting and in this session and go out there and make some things happen. We started out today with some pretty heavy information. Right? It almost feels like we're standing at the base of this mountain looking up, like we're thinking, what the hell are we going to do? No, but in this industry, when we see that mountain, we don't run away. We find a way to get over it. When we're dealing with stuff like mental health epidemics, labor shortages, they're huge complex issues, but they're also our greatest invitation to innovate and evolve. That's 2 things we do really well in construction. We're problem solvers. We get things done. We're facing unprecedented times here. There's demographic shifts, economic instability, cultural revolutions, but we can and must find a way to overcome these challenges. We owe it to ourselves, we owe it to our families, we owe it to our teammates, and we owe it to the future of the industry. We have a shared responsibility as builders of this world. Let's all do our part to build a culture that's as strong, as enduring as the structures we leave behind. The progress of humankind is literally depending on it. Thank you.